All right, well, welcome to our second lesson on equations, equations with brackets. So this is lesson 2 in the unit on equations. Um, Same rules apply for solving equations with brackets. There's this one really big difference in that is that we must deal with and remove the brackets using our distributive law or distributive property. And that stands to fare well because we understand that uh, B in BEDMAS stands for brackets, and that's the first thing we want to address. So we're going to address that issue anytime there are brackets in a question. So I find the best way to deal with this is to just do some examples. So I've got 3 examples to do with you today. Um, and our first example is shown on the notes page for equations with brackets, which is available in your contents folder where you found this video. So if you downloaded that, you could have looked at the examples we're going to do, and I'm just going to do them here online. I'm going to use my pen and try to write them in. And well, I'm a little sloppy sometimes, but you'll bear with me here as I get my pen set up. Okay, so here's our first example. It's 4 times x minus 2 in brackets plus 4 equals 14. And in this particular question, the 4 is being multiplied by the x minus 2, which is in brackets. And that's what we're going to address first. We're going to use our distributive property here, and we're going to remove that. This side of the equation is independent, and there's nothing to be done here. But if there is something, as we'll see in the next example, we will address each side of the equation separately. Okay, so let's start. One of the first things I like to do, it did this to me before too. It jumps off on me. I'll just bring it back, sorry. Um, One things I like to do is just right away um, put my equals 14 in, and it just helps me keep my equal signs in line here. Okay, now I'm going to then deal with my distributive property. So 4 is going to multiply by x, sorry, and that'll give me 4x. And then 4 is going to multiply by the minus 2 to give me minus 8. And then I still add in my plus 4. That's something I have to do, okay? And what you'll notice is that we now have 2 number terms on this side of the equation. I deal with each side of the equation separately, so there's nothing to do on this side of the equation with 14. I just leave it there. So once again, for the next line, I can already put 14 in there and just be done with it. But here I have look for like terms, and these two are like terms because they're both numbers with no variable. The 4x is all by itself. There's nothing it can combine or collect with. So that's just the way it's going to be. All right. So we're going to leave it as 4x, and minus 8 plus 4 is like starting at minus 8 on a number line, moving to the right 4 spaces, which is going to get me to minus 4. If you're not sure how to do that, use your calculator. Just use your calculator, minus 8 plus 4, and it'll give you the answer of minus 4. And we write that in there. We're now looking like a question that looks a lot more like what our questions from yesterday did. And so I'm just going to clean up a little mess here. I'm making some messes around here with my eraser. But this looks a lot more like a question from yesterday's worksheets, okay? Now, what I have is I have the minus 4, which is on the left side. It doesn't have a letter term, and we know that if it doesn't have a letter and it's just a number, it should really be over on the right side. So we want to get rid of it here. How do we get rid of it here? We simply go plus 4, and then we can go plus 4 on this side. And now that will end up becoming 4x. This becomes 0. Minus 4 plus 4 is 0. And 14 plus 4 is 18. As long as we keep doing the same thing to both sides of the equation here, we can start to manipulate, moving things around, kind of manipulating the look of it. No problem. So in this particular case, we're getting close to being done this question. And you'll notice that I have 4 times x equals 18. Well, I want to get rid of the 4 in front of the x. Well, that's 4 times x, so the opposite of times is divide. So I'm going to divide by 4, and I'm going to divide by 4. And this leaves me with x on this side because 4 divided by 4 is 1. And we don't write the 1 out front, but it's like 1. X equals 18 divided by 4. If you don't know the answer to 18 divided by 4, you're going to get your calculator out and you're going to punch it in. I sometimes do that even on the computer here. I'll reach down and I'll go to my toolbar here and I'll go calculator, and up it comes, 18. Type that in there, divided by 4. Whoops, I got an extra 8 in there. How do I get that to go backwards? I'll do that again. 18 divided by 4 equals, and it tells me the answer is 4.5, and that is the correct answer. 4.5, and I'm all done. Nicely done, the first one. Okay, and now we can go on to the second example. Okay, and I'll do the second example here. Well, just as a little after or additional thought is sometimes I like to now the object tool here, so I think that helps you see me. 4.5 is the same as x. If I put the 4.5 right here into my equation, imagine that x is 4.5, and then I subtract 2. Well, what's 4.5 minus 2? Well, that's 2.5, or 2.5. 2.5 times 4, that's 10. And then I added 4, oh, that's 14, which is what the other side is, and we're saying 14 equals 14. In fact, that is true. So this expression is true. The only time it's true is if x equals 4.5. We put any other number in there, doesn't matter what it is, 4.6, 4.4, 9, 12, 152. It doesn't matter what we put in for x. This will not be equal. Only time it's equal is if 4.5 is there. All right, let's move to our next example. All right, so here we go. This time it's a little more complex. We've got 3 times 2x minus 5 in brackets, and 4 times 2x plus 2 in brackets, plus another 7. Okay, I purposely had the additional number 7 just to kind of add some level of complexity to this. But what we're going to do is think of this as like 2 different questions to start with, and we're going to get rid of the brackets on each side independent of the other side. Just going to redetermine them or make them look different. We're going to give them a hairdo, put them in different clothes. It's essentially the same thing, it's just going to look different. So one of the first things, again, I like to do is set my equal sign. Okay, oh, I gotta go put back to pen. I apologize, it wasn't on pen. I set my equal sign, and then I'm going to deal with each side like this. 3 times 2x is 6x, because 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times minus 5, let's try that again. It doesn't want to draw for me. Sometimes it does that. 3 times minus 5 is minus 15. Okay, see if it draws now. See, there it goes. There it draws. Then I've got 4. On this side, I'm going over to the other side. 4 times 2x is 8x, and 4 times 2 is another 8 plus 8, not without the x. And then, of course, I have this plus 7 on the end. And so I've really eliminated the brackets, but I look to see if there's anything else I can simplify, anything I can bring together. Are there things like x's that can be added together, or numbers? And in this case, the 2 numbers that can be added together are the 8 and the 7. So I'm going to add those 2 together on this side and get 8x plus 15. Starting to feel a little better with the pen here, guys. All right, so I got 6x. Rewrite that there. Now I'm in a situation where I want to start to move things so that I can isolate my x, right? And so I want my letters to be on my left side, my numbers on my right. So if anything's not where it belongs, it has to be eliminated. So the minus 15 is a number on the left-hand side. I want to get rid of it. So what do? I add 15 here, and I add 15 here. That will eliminate this here. This will become 0. Okay, that's really crucial to understand. That minus 15 plus 15, that's going to be 0. Okay, so I just use the opposite sign of what was here. I use plus. If this is a plus, I'm going to use minus. And that's going to give me 30. Okay, but I also want to get the 8x out because it has a letter and it's on the right hand side, and letters are supposed to be on the left. We don't want them on the right. So to get rid of it here, I'm going to minus 8x, and I'm going to minus 8x, and that will get rid of this 8x here. 8x minus 8x, nothing. That's 0. But 6x minus 8x is not 0. That is actually going to work out to be minus 2x, and that is going to equal the 30 here from 15 plus 15. And so I end up with this wonderful equation. This one looks really different. This is where we see some real big changes here. And it's just a manipulation of the equation, okay? So the 15 minus 15 plus 15 is gone, and the 8 minus 8x is gone. They're zeros. Now, I'm not quite done, but I'm getting there. 2 is being multiplied by the x, actually minus 2. And so I want to divide by minus 2. Divide by minus 2. And these two end up being 1, which leaves me with x equals minus 15. And that's because 30 divided by minus 2 is a negative value. And that is your answer for today's second example. Now I added a third example, and I did this on purpose because a lot of students get confused whenever we have a question where we have a question where there is a minus sign directly in front of the bracket. And students are like, oh man, how do I deal with that? Like, what do you do now? Like, it's just got minus x plus 3. Like, it's like weird. Well, what it is if you recall from previous lessons, is that this is just a surprise or hidden 1 in here. And so we're going to take the minus 1 and multiply it by x, and the minus 3 and multiply it, or minus 1 and multiply it by the 3. Positive 3. And so what happens there is you end up with minus, and I encourage you to write minus 1x and then minus 3, because minus 1 times 3 is minus 3, and that will equal 7. And this now becomes a more simple equation, much more simple equation. Now what I'm going to do is the minus 3 is on the wrong side, so I add 3 here, I add 3 here. This now changes, of course, this becomes 0, this beautiful part here. And so I end up with minus 1x equals 10. And again, I have a number in front of the x that I want to get rid of. It's multiplying by it. So when it's multiplying by it, I decide I'll divide. And if I divide by the same value, in this case, minus 1, okay, then I can do the same on the other side. Golden rule of solving equations, divide both sides by the same thing, multiply. Whatever you do to one side, you do the same to the other side. And this leaves me with x equals minus 10. And that is my answer for this equation. Once again, you'll notice that my equal signs, pretty good. Let's see how I did on the other ones with respect to that. Not too bad here if I look back at it, right? I'm gonna draw my line through it, right? And look at how I did here. Actually, I could do that in red or something better. Like watch this. Use some really cool technology here. I'll go, ooh, look at that. Oh, isn't that sweet? That's special. It's like, being on a whiteboard or something, right? And then I can go back to my last question, and well, it was maybe my worst one, right? I wasn't doing as well. I curving off here a little bit, but I'm still not too bad. What I don't want to see is that you're going like this and all over the place, right? Let's try to keep a straight line as we go down these equations. All right, well, that's your lesson for today. You should be able to find the note that was for this video below the video. In your content folder, you will also find a worksheet, the worksheet answer key, and if you'd like to, you can try the quiz. I'm not marking the quizzes now, it's just a little more difficult, but if you do take a picture of it and send it to me, I will give you some feedback on it. All right, well, enjoy, and we'll see you again in a couple days or whenever you tune back in to VLE.